In 1998, Apple took its biggest risk yet. One machine, one shot to turn the company around, and everything was riding on it. In fact, it almost didn't happen at all. It was risky, rushed, and unlike anything in the industry had seen before. Apple wanted to create the best computer possible, the iMac. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Too many products, too few customers. Shelves were filled with beige boxes no one could tell apart. The iMac wasn't just a bold move, it was Apple's last chance to survive. 1996, the personal computer industry was stuck in a dull, lifeless routine. Nearly every machine was the same: a beige box, heavy monitor, tangled cables. Computers were sold as tools designed for offices and technical users, not for everyday people. There was no focus on design, no effort to make them friendly or approachable. At the same time, Apple's own lineup was even more confusing. They sold dozens of models with small variations, but without clear vision. Even employees struggled to explain the differences. Customers were frustrated. Shareholders were furious. Sales plummeted, and Apple lost over $1 billion in a single year. They weren't just losing money, it was losing its soul. The company that once stood for creativity and innovation had become a shadow of itself. Bloated, confused, and burning through cash like paper in a fire. No one knew which project would be canceled next. Dozens of computers were being built, none with clear purpose. Engineers were tired, designers were frustrated. The media called it a slow-motion train wreck. In 1997, Apple turned to its co-founder in desperation. Steve Jobs returned, not as a gentle advisor, but as a force of change. He immediately made hard decisions. He slashed Apple's chaotic product line down to just a few key models, canceling dozens of projects. He laid off thousands of employees. Every resource was redirected to one goal: focus. Jobs believed that Apple's only chance was to create something so compelling that it would make people care about computers again. He wanted a product that wasn't just a machine, but an experience. Something friendly, something beautiful that would inspire people to feel excited about technology, rather than intimidated by it. To make that vision real, Steve turned to a young designer named Jony Ive. Together, they began work on a completely new kind of computer, one that would break every rule the industry had settled into. Inside Apple, it was known simply as C1. It was more than just a design project. It was a last, desperate bet to save the entire company. And when the time finally came to share it to the world, Apple wouldn't just be launching a new product. It would be announcing that it was still alive and ready to change everything. The idea became the iMac G3. This thing looked like a CRT monitor ate a Game Boy Color. It was wild, it was blue, it was see-through. It was nothing like the boring beige boxes people were used to. At the time, Apple was hanging by a thread. They needed a miracle, and this was it. Steve Jobs had just come back. He cleaned the house, cut the noise, and greenlit the machine that didn't feel like a machine. It felt like a character, something you could actually like. The G3 wasn't just eye candy either. A 233 MHz PowerPC processor powered it, came with a CD-ROM drive instead of a floppy, and had USB ports instead of clunky serial ports. It was ready for the internet the moment you plugged it in. This was the first real all-in-one computer for regular people. Teachers, students, parents, artists, everyone suddenly wanted one. Apple didn't just build a computer here, they built hope. The iMac G3 saved the company, changed how computers looked, and made tech feel less like work and more like fun. Apple wasn't content with just surviving. They wanted to prove they could keep innovating. So in 2002, they introduced the iMac G4, making a bold statement that design and technology could work together in new ways. Gone was a chunky CRT. In came a sleek 15-inch flat-panel LCD floating on an adjustable chrome arm like some kind of futuristic sunflower. Inside, it packed a PowerPC G4 processor, up to 1 GB of RAM, and a super drive for burning DVDs because, yes, that was a flex in 2002. Design-wise, it was a total split. Some people called it brilliant. Others thought it looked like a kitchen appliance. But here's the thing, it moved. You could tilt the screen like a desk lamp, which made it oddly satisfying to use. It wasn't just form over function, it was form as function. It didn't sell as many units as the G3, but it kept the cool factor alive. This wasn't just a computer anymore, it was a conversation piece. Apple knew it couldn't rely on bold colors and playful designs forever. To stay ahead, it needed to prove it could make a machine that was not just beautiful, but truly modern and professional. That drive led to the iMac G5, a design that stripped away the past and pointed directly at the future. This thing looks serious. No more jelly beans, no more lamps, just a clean white rectangle like a stormtrooper with a productivity addiction. Apple dropped the playful vibes and went full grown-up mode. The entire computer was packed behind a flat LCD screen. Inside, it ran on a PowerPC G5 chip, Apple's most powerful processor at the time. And for a minute, it felt like Apple had made the first real desktop for serious work and good taste. But it wasn't without problems. Many units suffered from failing capacitors on the logic board that could bulge or leak, causing boot failures and instability. Heat management was also a major issue. The design made it easy for dust or pet hair to clog vents, leading to overheating and early hard drive failures. Liquid-cooled models were especially risky, with coolant leaks that could corrode the logic board and internal components over time. The thermal design was struggling, and fans were working overtime to keep it from melting. In 2005, Apple released a slightly updated version with better cooling and minor tweaks. But it was clear, they'd pushed the PowerPC architecture as far as it could go. Performance gains were stalling, and even basic tasks were starting to push the machine to its limits. Apple knew the writing was on the wall. A bigger shift was coming. The G5 was sleek, modern, and iconic, but it was also the end of the line for something. Something big was about to change. So in 2006, Apple made the bold decision to switch from PowerPC processors to Intel. This wasn't a small update, it completely transformed what Macs could do. Now they could run Windows alongside Mac OS, making them far more appealing to developers and professionals who needed flexibility. It opened the door for new software and new customers, breaking Apple out of its own isolated ecosystem and putting it back into the mainstream tech race. And the iMac leveled up hard. In 2007, Apple launched the brushed aluminum iMac. Sleek, silver, and serious. Gone were the colorful plastics. This thing looked like it came from a scientific lab. Inside, it ran on Intel's Core 2 Duo. Faster, cooler, more reliable. It was a real performance boost. Finally, a Mac that could handle heavy creative work without breaking a sweat. By 2009, the iMac was forged from a single piece of aluminum. It looked expensive, because it was, but that generation was without its issues. The 27-inch late 2009 iMac faced multiple early quality control problems, most notably screen flickering, yellow discoloration, and even cracked glass panels right out of the box. Some units had uneven backlighting caused by faulty solder joints or aging capacitors on the inverter board. Others experienced random freezes, memory recognition problems, and occasional display dimming. While the design was a leap forward, the early rollouts showed that pushing boundaries in hardware also meant facing new reliability challenges. Also in this year, Apple introduced an improved aluminum iMac with a unibody case. It was the first iMac with a 16:9 widescreen aspect ratio. All specifications were upgraded. Movies, editing, gaming, it all hit better. And it made one thing clear, the iMac wasn't just back, it was dominant. By 2012, Apple wasn't just focused on power, it was determined to redefine the very shape of the desktop. This next iMac would prove that cutting-edge design could be pushed even further, challenging what people thought a computer could look like. Apple said, "What if we made it thinner?" And then they did. Like, really thinner. The 2012 iMac was so slim it looked like a flat-screen TV fell in love with a MacBook and had a beautiful aluminum baby. Apple completely redesigned the inside, removing the optical drive, compressing the internals, and fusing the glass to the display to save space. The result is a body that tapered down to just 5mm at the edges, and the screen was gorgeous, LED backlit, high-res with a full glossy finish. Not Retina yet, but easily one of the best-looking displays of its time. Every pixel looked intentional. People didn't just buy this iMac because they needed a computer. They bought it to flex. This wasn't just tech, it was a status symbol. Clean desks, minimalist setups, look how sophisticated I am energy. Apple didn't just slim it down, they sharpened their entire image. Company knew the next step wasn't just about raw performance, it was about visual experience. As screen technology became more advanced, they aimed to set a new standard for desktop displays. In 2014, they introduced the iMac with Retina 5K display, packing over 14 million pixels into a 27-inch screen. It made your eyes feel like they got an upgrade, and it featured a resolution of 5120 by 2880. Photos popped, text looked printed, and video, 4K editing suddenly felt casual. You could have 4K footage playing in full resolution with space to spare for your editing timeline. That was ridiculous at the time. Viewing angles were wide, blacks were deep, and the contrast is gorgeous. Even browsing memes felt cinematic. Under the hood, it was just as serious. You had a choice between Intel Core i5 or i7, AMD Radeon graphics, and up to 32GB of RAM. It wasn't just a Mac anymore. It was a workstation disguised as art. Photographers, video editors, designers, basically everyone with a creative bone in their body had to have it. It turned living rooms into studios and coffee tables into edit bays. This wasn't a cute desktop computer. This was a creative weapon. 2017, Apple got tired of people saying iMacs were just for graphic designers and YouTubers, so they summoned something darker, the iMac Pro. It came in space gray, which in Apple speak translates to this beast was built for professionals who needed ridiculous power, up to an 18-core Intel Xeon processor, 128GB of ECC RAM, Radio Pro Vega graphics, and 4TB of SSD storage. This thing wasn't playing around. It could render full-length Pixar films, simulate black holes, train AI models, and yes, run Fortnite at ultra settings while barely breaking a sweat. It had a 5K Retina display, advanced thermal architecture, and a cooling system that sounded like it was borrowed from a spaceship. This was no longer an iMac. It was a workstation disguised as modern art. But power comes at a price, and that price was your soul. Maybe your car, possibly your firstborn. Starting price was around $5,000. Fully spec'd was over $13,000. And just like that, in 2021, Apple pulled the plug. The Space Gray King was discontinued. No big farewell, it just vanished. RIP to the darkest, most dangerous iMac ever made. Gone, but never forgotten. In 2020, Apple decided to take complete control of its future. No more relying on outside suppliers to set limits. They unveiled its own custom-designed chip. They introduced Apple's Silicon M1 chip, marking one of the most important shifts in the company's history. This wasn't just a new processor. It was a promise to redefine performance, efficiency, and what a personal computer could be. The M1 wasn't just good, it was magic. Built on ARM, this chip was insanely fast, shockingly efficient, and stupidly quiet. It combined CPU, GPU, RAM, neural engine, and more into one compact brain. No separate graphics card, no loud fans, just pure power wrapped in silence. Battery life skyrocketed, apps flew, everything just worked. Then came the 2021 iMac M1. Only 11.5mm thin, as if Apple dared gravity to try something. It came in 7 colors, echoing the G3 days, but with modern minimalism. That 4.5K Retina display was bright, sharp, delicious. Add in studio quality mics, amazing speakers, and a keyboard with Touch ID, this thing was an iPad Pro in beast mode. By 2023, Apple released the M3 iMac, and it was like giving the iMac a strong cup of coffee. The M3 chip made everything faster, apps opened quicker, graphics looked better. It was great for people who wanted speed without their computer turning into a noisy space heater. Then came 2024, and Apple brought out the M4 like, step aside M3, I got this. It made the iMac even faster and smarter. It could handle more apps at once, do cool AI tricks, and still stay cool and quiet. It also helped Apple make the iMac thinner, because apparently, computers need to go on diets now too. The M4 didn't just improve speed, it made the iMac feel like it could predict what you needed before you clicked. Like a mind reader, but without the weird hat. So, what did the iMac really achieve? It transformed the computer from a cold, complicated tool into something personal, approachable, and even beautiful. It proved that design mattered as much as performance, that technology could feel human. From the first translucent shell to today's razor-thin, precision-engineered aluminum, the iMac evolved into an icon of modern design, setting standards the industry would chase for decades. This was a story of how the iMac was made, a story of a computer that changed our perception of technology, our perception that innovation is not about following trends, it's about daring to redefine them.